Do you know that today can be the day that sets the mark for you, especially when it comes to carving out a wealthy generation and causing a generation of wealth to actually come out of you? Some of the things I want to share with you today are things that I share only with my premium clients. And the reason why, you would probably know the reason why much later, is because this is the kind of information or the level of insight or awareness that they are able to execute almost immediately. And so if you are someone who is still in the middle class and still have like a long way to go in this financial thing, then you probably understand why you don't always get access to this kind of information. Because one of the curses of knowledge is that if you have knowledge or a knowledge comes to you and you do not have what it takes to manifest that knowledge, almost given the period of manifestation of that information, it turns from a blessing to a curse. And so one of the things I'll be sharing with you today is heredity and finance. And what is the connection between heredity and finance? And what is it that people who walk in wealth understand the game of wealth? What do they know that they're probably not telling you? And why does it seem like there is always a parallel line between people who grow in wealth and a sense of religion? Okay, all of this you get to understand in this very short moment that we're going to have. Now, I'm not going to be very exhaustive in this session. However, one of the things I will try to do is to make sure that I create that enabling environment to give you a sense of awareness, that your eyes may be open to what I will be speaking, what I'll be saying, and more importantly, not just your eyes, but your heart. Okay, so you begin to get the understanding of the kind of decisions you need to make and giving yourself certain timelines. Okay, you're not supposed to rush these things at this time. So when it comes to family and heredity and wealth, you need to understand that wealth does not just happen. Wealth is grown, wealth is built, wealth is nurtured. And that is because you need to understand that wealth is a personality. And this personality of wealth has certain protocols of exchange, protocols of approach, and protocols of growth. Not many people have all these protocols. Some only have the protocols of approach. Some only have the protocols of exchange. And some have the protocols to sustain. And so you see people who grow wealthy but are not able to keep it, and a life opportunity happens to them, but they are not able to maximize those opportunities. They miss certain moments in their lives that will have created a checkpoint for them that totally changes the course of their destiny. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that what is your history? And you cannot be delusional in this sense. You really have to go to the facts. You need to understand what the path of your history has been, your family line, your genealogy, up until it came to you, up until it got to you. How many wealthy people have you had in your family line? How long ago was it? Okay, I'm not just talking about uncles and aunts. I'm talking about people that are directly with your blood. So it's either your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather. I'm not talking about uncles, aunts, relatives. I'm talking about direct bloodline. This is important because this is the path, your own path, that you need to actually study and take. Okay, so look onto 3-4 generations. Have you, as your line, tasted wealth in those 3 to 4 generations? If they have not, good. If they have, good. That means that now you know where to start and then how to build from the point and the moment that you're at. So, where did you start? Was there anyone in that family line that seemed to have what it took or what it would take to become wealthy, but for some reasons it didn't really happen to them? they didn't get it right. It's important to have this level of data or information, because this is the takeoff point. And if you don't do well in the takeoff point, it will affect the quality of the momentum that you have, along the way. So where did you start? What was the first taste of wealth? Now, so it means that probably maybe you were of the generations were of low class, and then the best opulent person there was middle class. Okay, maybe the person owned a house, the person had a prospering business, the person traveled abroad. Okay, all of this data and information is very, very useful for you. And these are the things that you need to actually begin to map out, going back into your past, so that you can now prognosticate, and then we'll plan the future together for you. So I mentioned that what's your history, and then where did you start? Now the next thing is, what did you own? It is important for you to note that it is very difficult to grow in wealth without having assets. I'm not talking about investments in terms of money. I'm talking about investment in terms of assets. Now, education is an asset, but not everybody is able to turn that asset into wealth. Real estate, house, businesses are assets. And so you need to check down the line. When I mean asset, prospering assets. If your genealogy were maybe a fashion designer and was just at the low level, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of assets that begins to give you access to a lot of cash flow. Okay, so you really need to begin to reminisce about that and begin to see what did you own? What have you owned? Are there certain things you have? Okay, there's a land somewhere, there's a business somewhere, there's an asset, there's something that generates money or has a sense of value. Okay, you need to begin to look into your past and see if you have anything of that sort. Now, if you are even able to find anything of that sort, is that thing still connected to you today? Do you have a share in it? Are you a shareholder? If you are not a shareholder, forget about it. It means that you need to start building from the closest that you have access to, and you are like an access point shareholder. Okay, this is very important, and this is very key. Now, the next thing I need you to find out is, what has been your family economic standard? Have you always been low class? Have you always been lower middle class? Have you been middle class? Have you been upper middle class? Or have you experienced the higher life? Okay, you need to find out what it is. What has been your, now I'm not talking about your great-great-grandfather now, I'm talking about your immediate family now. What is your financial class? What is your societal class? Are you someone who have you traveled? Have you gone on a plane? Have you been to a yacht? Have you gone on holiday? Okay, what is the social quality of your family, of your life? Okay, do you have vacations every week? Have you traveled out of the country? Have you traveled in a plane? Do you own a car? Do you own cars? Do you own businesses? What are the quality? Look, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So what I want you to understand, what is your family's economic standard? Note that, and as close as possible, so that's your parents and the experiences that you have had so far. Now gauge what that economic standard is, and you need to be truthful or honest with yourself. You're not trying to impress anybody here. Okay, now once you understand what your family economic standard is, the next thing you need to begin to look at is, do you have wealth consciousness? The culture of your family, the way they live, are they working based on scarcity mentality, or do you have a sense of abundance mentality? I've talked about scarcity and abundance mentality before. You can go into previous videos to find out more about that. And so you need to check, because if you have scarcity mentality, it means you are going down. If you have abundance mentality, it means you have the potential of going up. Okay, so it's important to know, are you always managing things? Are you always hoarding things? Or you have a mentality of, if I need something, I grow to get it. Or if I need something, I borrow to get it. Borrowing to get things is scarcity mentality. Growing to get things is abundance mentality. Okay, so if you need to go on vacation or plan a wedding or something, maybe people who would take loans, But however, if you already plan, okay, in the next 3 years I'll get married, okay, how much do I need for a wedding? What can I do? What job? What skill? In order for me to begin to have that earning power. That is abundance mentality. Abundance mentality is about productivity. Scarcity mentality is about consumption. They are always consumers. There's nothing they are producing, there's nothing they are creating, and so there's no economic cycle, in their family. So that's something for you to note as well. What is that wealth consciousness? If they have it, if they don't, then it actually lets you know where you're actually starting. Starting from. Now, one of the thing you need to understand is that wealth does not naturally start up until the third generation. What that means is that there must be a sustained growth from one generation to another. So it's like from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. Okay, it does not mean that Abraham cannot be wealthy, Isaac cannot be wealthy, but when it becomes sustained wealth, it has to travel through 3 generations. And so if you are your generation now and wealth has not been able to travel from your father's generation or your grandfather's generation, then I believe you know where that puts you and the kind of work that is required of you in order to begin to grow these things. Okay, if you are the one who is starting that wealth journey in your family, know that you are working towards getting rich and then transferring that knowledge, that culture to the next generation, building a legacy in them that enables them to grow and to sustain that wealth. It's until the 3rd generation that you can now actually be acclaimed, to be a family of wealth. You can be a wealthy individual, but not a family that is wealthy. So these are the things that you need to be done. So what I mentioned for you, you see like checkpoints. And so the next thing I want to share with you are more of the pragmatics. Okay. Now, what are the pragmatics to financial heredity? The first thing is education. You cannot do without education. Education must be one of the things you have and one of the things you pass to the next generation. Not just any kind of education, but a quality, good education has to be passed. Then the next thing is prosperous territories. You must own assets like lands, real estate, that you begin to pass. Why is this necessary? When you pass a house as an asset to your children, it means that you've made life easier for them, that they don't have to start from building to get a house, or they don't have to waste money paying rent every time. So you save them something. And so that excess, they can put it back into the family to run and to grow wealth. You understand what that means? And so they do it in their family and then they pass it on again. So you pass on education, quality education from the best place money can afford for you. And then from education, you pass landed property to the next generation. And then from there, it's also important to have sustainable businesses. So a kind of business that you hand over, it might not just be the business name now, but the business approach, that entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to create, to be productive, and to solve problems and create value. Okay, that sense also needs to be communicated to the next generation. All of these are qualities that allow wealth to drive in someone's direction. And also, he that is wealthy must keep a wealthy relationship. You are able to sustain wealth by the quality of the relationship that you have. If you are the first person to get wealthy and everyone around you begins to expect black tax, that means you need to send their child to school, you need to pay for something, you cannot transfer wealth from that generation. Okay, so you must begin to ally with wealthy people at the same level, people at higher level, so that you can begin to build a personal economy at that point. And it's the quality of these relationships that you pass on to your children. Some of these relationships are business relationships. Some of these relationships are marital relationships. A rich person marries the son or the daughter of a fellow rich person, and so they have that personal economy and they continue to sustain and grow in wealth. There are no two ways around this. Okay, so this is how the basic approach. This is not cast in stone, but this is just the basic approach for people. And so you need to understand where you are and what needs to be done for you. Now, for when I begin to engage with premium clients, I run a certain test, ask difficult questions to ascertain where they are, what they need to do, and how long it's going to take them to do that. So one of the questions I want to ask you is, from your age today, if you needed to make ₦1 billion with what you currently earn, how many years will it take you? Now, when you find that, so what can you do to make sure that it does not take that long? And one of the ways it doesn't take that long is not from your generation, but the value of education, information, culture, relationships, strategy, legacy that you hand over to the next generation. So it's now the next generation that shrinks that time, okay, and make sure that they are able to get to a point of sustained wealth. There's a whole lot more I wish I can share, but I do not want this to take so much time. However, I believe that this can begin to open your eyes to where you are and what you need to actually begin to think about intentionally. So what you now need to do, you can't do everything all at once. Find the one that is easiest for you to do. Is it the business? Is it the landed property? Is it the connection? Is it education? Start from there and then begin to build it upwards. And hopefully I will begin to see the mark of progress in your life. This is how to enjoy financial heredity. It's difficult. You don't really hear things like this except you really get into certain circles. Okay, and the reason why is because this kind of information is best given to people who will maximize it, get the best of it, and collapse time in the execution of this. I really hope that this brings a lot of value to you and brings a lot of questions and motivates you in order to drive and to become better. I hope I'll see you on the other side. Ciao.